Welcome to the 700 Club. Lawlessness in our streets, cancel culture shutting down our free speech, critical race theory poisoning our schools. The list goes on. Marxism has infiltrated our country, and our America is under siege. So what can we do before it completely destroys our great nation? Mark Levin is going to be giving us the answer in his tremendous book called American Marxism. But first, CBN's Dale Hurd has more.
A revolution against traditional American values is in full swing. Rioting and looting have decimated cities. Statues have been toppled. Cancel culture has sought to censor and marginalize conservative voices on social media. And school children are being taught critical race theory, that America was founded as a racist nation. Once only a fringe political movement, elements of Marxist ideology are now being pushed not only in schools, but in the media, corporations, government, and even the military. In his new book, American Marxism, TV and radio host and best-selling author Mark Levin warns this counter-revolution is devouring our society and culture. And Levin says Americans must confront Marxism in all its forms before this nation is lost.
Well, Mark Levin joins us now by Skype. Mark, this book, American Marxism, is a classic. You have done a fantastic job. The scholarship is brilliant, and I know it's a bestseller. Congratulations.
Thank you, Pat.
Let me ask you something. Marxism has resulted in the death of at least 100 million people around the world. It's been a colossal failure. Why is it coming here to America?
Because it's an easy out, Pat, I believe, for individuals who don't take responsibility for their own lives, for individuals who are buying into this victimhood ideology and can blame other people. It's the oppressor Marxist model, the victim, the victimizer. And so I think you really have two groups of people. You have malcontents, people with very little connection to society, people who maybe have failed in their lives or so forth, and they're looking for excuses. And then you have the fanatics that lead these movements, who are power hungry, who want to control society. We've had them in every form all throughout humanity. And what it is it's this vicious, vile attack on the most fantastic country on the face of the earth. It's a rejection of Judeo-Christian morality. You can see it in our classrooms with the transgender movement. Did you ever think you'd hear of a transgender movement? An attack on our economic system, capitalism, an attack on citizenship with open borders. And you hear the language, even Biden, redistribution of wealth, the rich versus the poor, white versus black. Marxism has to have this going on, constant conflict, classes, caste systems. But America is not a country of classes and caste systems, so they have to manufacture it and create it. And they have to devour our educational system, which is what Marx would want them to do, and push indoctrination. They reject free speech. They're not interested in a competition of ideas. And you see this leaching into every aspect of our culture and led by the media. And you can see that the Democrat Party has become the political voice and the political force for this movement. So I called the book, after all this research, all the writing, near the end of the book, I said, what is this? I said, it's Marxism, but it's an American form of Marxism. It may not be technically Marxism in every sense. But in terms of the scholarship you point out, I went back. What is the basis of critical race theory? Who invented this? Who invented critical theory? Who invented this open borders lat-crit movement? Who invented this idea that there aren't binary sexes and that the family's coming under attack? These are all spawned American movements from Marxism, and we have to have the courage to call it what it is, Pat.
Mark, you talked about a guy named Marcuse who was the philosophical head of it, but you've also pointed out a couple of law professors of all places, the University of Alabama, who have been at the forefront of this critical race theory, which is just a monstrosity. Can you want to talk about that?
Yeah, there's two of them in particular, and you're right. And they push this propaganda. They write about these books. You'll notice, Pat, they're never discussed on network TV. They're never really discussed anywhere. Instead, they bring out Kendi and Delgado, these most recent authors who are making millions and millions of dollars pushing Marxism, as a matter of fact, and racist ideas. This is going on in our classrooms, in our schools, even the University of Alabama. It's going on across the country. Our children are being indoctrinated. Our children, you send them off to college, maybe you even pay their tuition. We, the state taxpayers, are subsidizing these universities and colleges. We have tenured Marxist professors who are poisoning one generation after another. And I have a chapter in the book on breeding a mob, Hate America, Inc. We are subsidizing our own demise. And so what I say in the book is we better step up to the plate here. We can't rely on the Republican Party or some political savior to come forward. It is we, the people. This is our 1776 moment without the violence. This, I'm hoping, is our American crisis, the pamphlet. We can't communicate through most of the media, Pat. You have this fantastic network. You know what else is going on out there. We can't communicate through social media. Maybe we have your platform, some other platforms, but in terms of the broad population, I think the written word and books, like the old pamphleteers, this is how we patriots who love this country, I don't care if you're a Democrat, Republican, Libertarian, moderate, whatever you are, if you love this country, we need to communicate with each other. We need to have a plan. We need to know what we're up against in order to combat it. And we need to get started, because I think we're not at the precipice looking into the abyss. We are in the abyss trying to claw our way out. And they're brainwashing our little grandchildren and children in elementary school. And if that doesn't prod people to act, which I explained in the last chapter, then I don't know what will.
You talked at length about Ayn Rand, who wrote that terrific book called Atlas Shrugged. But her idea was that the success is now something that is bad, and we ought to take success about and humiliate people who are successful. Is that the ultimate aim of Marxism, is to destroy success, destroy capitalism, destroy everything that gives us the kind of society we have?
You're absolutely right. This is a war on liberty. They use liberty to destroy liberty, which was basically her point. They use the Constitution to destroy the Constitution. They use the fruits of capitalism to destroy capitalism. And people say, why do they think this way? Because this is their religion. This is their faith. These are their false idols. They push religion out of the public square. They push people out of churches and synagogues. So what's left? Left is man praying to man, the most dangerous thing imaginable. That is what Marx is all about. Eliminate your history, eliminate faith, destroy the nuclear family. What's left? Government. And what does Marx say? He says what Hegel says and what Rousseau says. He actually stole it from them.
Yeah.
You need to surrender your individuality to the collective. Mm-hmm. Well, what's the collective? The collective is the government. So you're only going to be able to realize the fullness of your individuality if you surrender your liberty and your unalienable rights. To who? To Bernie Sanders? To AOC? To Joe Biden? Yes. That's the preaching.
Was Marx a Satanist priest? Some thought that beard he wore indicated that he was really over the edge in that regard.
Well, he's something like that, that's for sure, because his evil ideology, as you point out, resulted in the death of 100 million people and the enslavement of billions. And by the way, most people don't know, but you do, because you read the book, Pat, American Marxism. He was a journalist. That was his career. He wasn't like this great philosopher. He became sort of this ideologue, but he was a journalist, and he wrote for New York newspapers for 12 years. And after he died, it wasn't until 30 or 40 years later that people started picking up his ideological writings, including so-called self-anointed progressives in the United States who were very enamored with Marxism. John Dewey, Woodrow Wilson, Crowley, and the others, and they adapted it to our educational system. This educational system was under attack 100 years ago and every day since. And the media have bought off in this too. I write in the book where they're coming from, that you won't find, Pat, a dime's worth of difference between the media and the positions of these Marxist-spawned American movements, whether it's so-called climate change, which is a degrowth movement, an attack on capitalism, whether it is a critical race theory, which is a racist Marxist attack on our society or all the rest of it. The media are the mouthpieces for these movements, and the Democrat Party is the home.
Well, the so-called green movement, how does that fit into this Marxist philosophy?
Because in the 1970s, a cabal of Marxists got together in Europe, and as I point out in the book, and they attacked industrialized society, particularly America. Marx hated the Industrial Revolution because it proved Marxism to be a complete fraud. Why? The proletariat, that is the masses, didn't rise up and overthrow the country. We built the greatest middle class, happy people, people who are successful, people who earn a living, of any society on the face of the earth. The greatest capitalist system was the opposite of what Marx said it was. So they've been attacking the industrial might of our country, smokestack industries, manufacturing, day in and day out ever since. You must destroy the industrialized heart of America. You must destroy capitalism for Marxism to succeed. And so this is the constant redistribution of wealth, massive confiscatory taxes, anything they can think of, regulations and so forth, to hinder and undermine the American industrial might. And the first thing they attacked, of course, and Biden attacked, was energy. You can't have a thriving economy. You can't have well-priced consumer goods. Energy is the center of everything. If you're going to destroy energy, you're going to destroy our economic system.
How are we going to fight it, Mark?
Well, you know, Pat, it took 100 years to get here, and hopefully it'll take less. But at the end of the book, it's the most important book I've ever written. It's the longest book I've ever written. But at the end of the book, I provide scores of ideas of how to fight back against the corporatists who have surrendered to this and now cheerlead for this. Our universities and colleges, we need to cut their funding, particularly in Republican states. I don't understand what's going on. If they're going to be using our money to subsidize the destruction of the country, they ought to have less of our money. We need to go after the teachers' unions, and there are ways we can do that. They have their various IRS standards. When they file, we can file complaints against them. I've done it myself. There's a whole list of things in these different areas with links with organizations. And Pat, I want to tell your audience, which is a magnificent audience, people of faith, please read the book, buy one and pass it around. Please do whatever you have to do. The time is now. This generation has to step up. This is daunting. It is complex, but we have no choice. It's in our face.
Well, Mark, I congratulate you again. It's a tremendous book, ladies and gentlemen. Very brilliantly researched and eye-opening. So it's an easy read, but it's a deep read. Mark Levin, American Marxism. You don't need to get a copy wherever books are sold. And Mark, thanks so much for being with us. It's good to see you. Congratulations.
And God bless you, and thank you for everything you do and you've done, Pat.
Thank you, sir.